It was June of 2011. Treasure hunters, Peter Lindberg, and entrepreneur, Dennis Obarya, along with their Swedish team called Ocean X, located something on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea, with their sonar equipment. This is what they found. At first glance, the object looks man-made. It doesn't seem to fit into the rest of the surroundings. It's unusually round, and smooth, and it sort of resembles a spacecraft. This is a side-by-side comparison of the Millennium Falcon, from the Star Wars trilogy, and the object. I would not blame whoever come up with that comparison, because there are lots of similarities. Due to the oddness of the find, the team decided to keep quiet on the discovery. It was a difficult move, because they were beyond excited. Peter and Dennis specialized in finding sunken treasures. They scoured the sea, with their high-tech sonar equipment. It wasn't their first voyage, nor was it their first find. But this find could be the key to something bigger. If it was something significant, the team was to make history. It wasn't until the following summer, that the team would return once again, in search of the object, and something concrete as proof. For weeks, Dennis and Peter poured countless hours in front of a computer screen, analyzing the object from different angles, and different analytical settings. They could not figure out what they were looking at. But they knew it was something. In order to attract sponsors, the team eventually revealed the existence of this mysterious Baltic Sea object. It wasn't long before the reporters and journalists started tracking them down for interviews. The announcement got people all over the world excited. Some believed that it was a crashed UFO. Some believed that it was a sunken underwater Stonehenge. Some believed that it was a portal to another world. Some believed that it was a natural geological formation. And some believed that it was unnatural, although they couldn't tell what it was. With so much enthusiasm in place, the team was out on a mission of a lifetime. Peter has over 20 years of experience finding and recovering wreckages underwater. In 1997, Peter was part of the team that located a Swedish merchant ship, about 40 kilometers off the coast of Rauma Island, in Finland. The ship sank during World War I. Miraculously, the cargo was almost entirely intact. The cargo contained bottles of champagne that are almost 100 years old. It was auctioned off for a record £2,200 per bottle. Today, each bottle is worth around €21,000 per bottle. Peter Lindberg started the company, Ocean X, with his entrepreneur friend, Dennis Obarya, out of their mutual love for rediscovering sunken treasures. Dennis wanted to find things that nobody else has found. His curiosity was what drove him into this space. The water where the Baltic Sea object is located, is in the northern Baltic Sea, off the coast of Sweden, in a stretch of sea that is shared between 9 countries. It was a smart move to make their search there, because there have been many ships lost to this stretch of the ocean throughout history. It's believed that there are more than 100,000 wreckages of old ships, carrying precious cargo, lost in there. This area of the ocean is a mix of both salt and fresh water, a perfect condition to preserve lost ships. The low salinity means that many ships recovered were in almost perfect condition, compared to ships found in other areas of the world. The exact location of the object was kept a closely guarded secret, as there were multiple authorities, from various nearby governments, interested in the object. The Baltic Sea object is roughly 60 meters in diameter. To put into perspective, this red line over here is how big a human is, compared to the size of this round smooth object. And if we place the human on top of this disc, lying down, we begin to see just how large this thing is. Although the object was relatively large in size, to find it in an endless stretch of sea was no easy task. It is like finding a needle in a haystack. Before the team head toward the Baltic Sea anomaly, everyone was asked to turn off their tracking devices. This move should protect the Ocean X team from being tracked. But it may be of no use, because the ship was soon approached by another ship. It was the Swedish Navy. There was no reason for them to be in that area of the sea, other than, of course, to survey the Ocean X crew. Thankfully, the ship stopped short of approaching the ship further, and headed north, after stalling their next move for a while. Even as the Navy ship went off, the crew was not entirely relaxed, as it was a signal that their every move was being observed. The emergence of the Navy ship was a warning. If they wanted to survey the crew from the distance, without notifying the crew, they would have. But they chose to make their presence known. Taking the necessary precaution, the exact coordinate of the object was not given out. Therefore, for the rest of us, we're only given the general location. And it's in this area. After more than 48 hours of searching, and nearly losing the expensive equipment to the depth of the sea. Ocean X was finally able to locate the object again. Since they don't know what the object was, they decided to send in a robot, with a camera attached, to check it out first. You can see here that the team is getting the first close look at the object, and it looked like it was made of concrete. The image conjured up the thought of Atlantis, in many people's minds. Atlantis is a mythical sunken city that was once a utopian civilization, with great naval power. Until, one day, it sank to the bottom of the sea, and was never seen again. Could this be the remnant of Atlantis? Another strange structure found underneath the sea is the Anomaly structure, located right here, on the other side of the globe. With straight edges, the huge structures resembled a sunken city. No one knew if it was a natural formation, or if it was the remnant of an unknown civilization. Strange structures have been found underwater, all over the world. Dennis and Peter had unknowingly stumbled upon yet another underwater mystery. Strangely, the equipment stopped functioning when it got too close to the object. It was almost as if it was emitting some sort of energy to interfere with the equipment. After the robot resurfaced, it was revealed that there were no radiation risks. In other words, it may be safe for human contact. Although the fog was heavy, Peter and Dennis ultimately decided to give it a go-ahead, and sent their experienced diver down to check it out. In that depth, there was only pitch-black darkness. Unfortunately, the presence of the ship stirred up the debris, which made the visibility even poorer for the diver. The cold can be almost unbearable as well. In fact, although the water was normally around 6 degrees Celsius, the temperature was only around -1 degree Celsius, when you're right on top of the object. The total depth to reach the object was 90 meters. Don't be fooled by the number. Diving 90 meters down is an extraordinary feat. At just 20 meters down, there would be almost no light. The diver would be at risk of nitrogen narcosis. When a person suffers from nitrogen narcosis, their symptom is similar to that of being under the influence of alcohol. This means impaired judgment and loss of concentration. Very dangerous when you're underwater. It would not be good news if the diver confused down with up. Usually, divers with less experience do not attempt to go down this far. But the diver couldn't stop at 20 meters down. He had to keep going. At 40 meters down, it's nearly entirely dark. At 60 meters down, it would be entirely black without any light. It's akin to being in a black hole. At this point, due to the enormous pressure, the high oxygen content can be poisonous, so the diver had to breathe in a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, and helium. This mixture has to be just right. Too much oxygen would not be good, and neither is too little. It would take another 30 meters after hitting meter 60 to complete the dive. The deeper and/or the longer the dive, the longer it'll take for the ascent to complete. The diver would have to pause several times to resurface. If the diver mismanaged the time, and started the ascent too late, there may not be enough oxygen left in the tank to allow the diver to pause several times before breaking the surface. This dangerous practice can cause decompression sickness, or the bends. To treat decompression sickness, typically, the diver would be placed in a recompression chamber. The problem is, the ship does not have a recompression chamber. Most ships don't possess one. The only way to get a recompression chamber would be to go to a hospital. Being so far from the shore, if anything goes wrong, there would be no way to get the diver into a recompression chamber in time before dying. The divers successfully touched down to 90 meters. But they only had 10 minutes to do what they had to do, before they had to leave. Here you can see the diver exploring the object. One thing the diver observed is what looked like, quote, concrete, or cement. When they touched it, it turned black. This is not something that concrete or cement does when you run a hand over it. Perhaps something was coating a darker solid underneath. The diver shared his experience of encountering other items of the same quality, and it turned out to be burnt or melted plastic. He's not saying that's what it was, just that the Baltic object was made of something unexpected. The diver took a few pictures down there. This is one of them. It looked like something protruding from, quote, straight edges. It looked almost molded. Very smooth. Even. One possibility is that it was magma that has been cooled down by the cold ocean water. Another picture showed what looked like a ring of rock, reminiscent of a fairy ring. The diver explained that it looked like someone put it there. In the English and Celtic folktales, it is believed that the fairy ring is caused by fairies and elves dancing in a circle. It's said that if you dance in the fairy ring, you would be made to dance in the ring, until you die from exhaustion. The oldest fairy rings are hundreds of years old. One of the oldest ones is located in France, 2,000 feet wide in diameter, and about 700 years old. Another thing the diver said that he saw, was a circle, or a hole, about 2 or 3 meters in width, with a square frame around it. You can see here that this may be what the diver saw. The diver wanted to go down there again for a second time, to take more pictures, and samples. But after this 90 meters dive, the human body would have to wait another 12 hours, at least, before attempting another dive. Unfortunately, the sponsor money could not allow them to extend their trip for another day, so they had to return to shore. The good news is that, at least some samples were collected. This stone was found by the diver, and it looked black in color, a bit like that of meteorite debris, which could be what the object is. After the footage was brought to Andreas Olsson, an expert in underwater archaeology, he concluded that the Baltic Sea object does look man-made. You can see here the shape is quite round and sharp. He said that he thought, at first glance, it looked like a modern construction, dating to the 19th or 20th century. However, just because an object looks man-made, does not mean it actually is. More testing needs to be done. As for the burnt rock retrieved from the scene, Dennis and Peter consulted a professor of marine geology and geophysics, Martin Jacobson. He explained that he would not expect volcanic activity in the area that could result in the burnt stone. When asked whether it was a piece of meteorite, Jacobson explained that there would have been a significant meteorite impact crater, if that was the case. We've seen no meteorite impact in the area. Another expert, Folko Bruquet, a geologist with 30 years of experience with rocks, weighed in on the burnt rock as well. And he concluded that it was a volcanic rock that has been transported to the area, possibly by glaciers. It is possible that the Baltic Sea object was just a glacial deposit. Perhaps, a piece of stone was carried to the spot by the moving ice. As it rolled along, the stone may have been polished to the smooth round shape that we see today. Now, on to another theory. Could it be a sunken UFO from a past visitor to the Earth? Scientists estimated that there are 40 billion planets that may be able to support life in the Milky Way galaxy alone. It certainly is possible that a few of those 40 billion planets have birthed a few intelligent life forms that eventually develop the technology to visit Earth. It may sound impossible to some, but keeping an open mind, perhaps, there are some surprises hidden in our ocean. Currently, only 5% of the ocean has been explored. We know more about the surface of the Moon and Mars than we do our own ocean. As some experts put it, we need to know what's beneath the surface of the object. Is there metal underneath? Or it is all stone? This would require a drilling undertaking, estimated to cost millions of euros. This is certainly what Dennis and Peter would want. But to do so, they would need to attract more sponsors, who are willing to bring the next expedition to light. However, just as they were about to make their next announcements, Fox News released an article, stating that the object was just a pile of rocks. It does nothing to attract new sponsors. Instead, it did the opposite for Ocean X. In an effort to try and fund the next expedition, Peter and Dennis started selling merchandise. However, to the onlookers, who were very much invested in the project, it seemed to them that Dennis and Peter were trying to profit off of nothing. People began making fun of Dennis and Peter. They even started receiving death threats in their inboxes. It was not a fun time for Peter and Dennis, as they had to start worrying about the safety of their families. Once in a while, however, Dennis and Peter would receive encouraging emails from fans, which kept their spirits up. Another theory of what the object could be, is that it could be human-made. An ancient settlement. The Baltic Sea is very young. It formed just 10,000 to 15,000 years ago, after the last ice age ended. It's located in northern Europe. Enclosed by Sweden, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. At 1,000 miles long, 120 miles wide, and 180 feet deep, which is around 55 meters deep, the maximum depth is around 1,506 feet, or 459 meters in depth. The last ice age took place 115,000 to 11,700 years ago. The Baltic Sea basin at the time was covered by a continental-wide ice sheet, which could have supported human settlement or at least allow humans to move through the area on foot. It may not look like it now, But all this water was not here at one point. Of course, we don't know how long the Baltic object had been there. The first wave of European settlement arrived, between 50,000 to 40,000 years ago. It's possible that the Baltic Sea object was a remnant of an early European settlement. This illustration by National Geography perfectly illustrates the migration pattern of ancient humans. And this picture from a scientific study explains that as late as 21,000 to 18,000 years ago, the area was covered by a sheet of ice. Scientifically, the ice could have also been there as early as 115,000 years ago. This means humans may have lived in, or passed through the area that is known as the Baltic Sea today. There were also periods of time when the ice sheet hasn't finished covering up the Baltic Sea, leaving it as dry land. It's very possible that some humans may have found the area home. If the Baltic Sea object was a remnant of a past civilization, perhaps it would explain the triangular symbol found on its surface. In this picture, you can see a perfect triangle carved into the structure, with a hole in the middle. The edges are straight and consistent. Could this be just a coincidence? Can glaciers do this? Or was it man-made? A couple of months after the news broke that it was just a pile of rocks, one of their fans was able to restore the corrupted data from a scan they took on their last expedition. The image was not showing up correctly when they last checked, and the team was dismayed about the seemingly useless file. But what they didn't know was there was a way to fix it. Armed with this new information, Peter and Dennis went in to check out the restoration. This is what they saw. About 1,500 meters from the Baltic Sea object, there is an underwater mountain. The mountain was divided by a canyon. You can see a ridge in between the object and the mountain. There was another smaller ridge on the side of the object. Here you can see the object from different angles. We're swimming past the ridge right now. Look at how the object sticks out from the surroundings. This is what Dennis had to say. Maybe I worked on it for too long now, maybe I'm crazy, but in my eyes, I see a crash site. As for Peter, he was prepared to accept any answer, even if it was a boring one. Despite the new find, the damage was already done. Ocean X was unable to find new sponsors. Without enough sponsors, the next expedition never took place. More than 10 years on, the object still sat there today. Unexplored. As far as we know. Since then, there has been a deeper analysis of the objects made, as well as new renderings, done by enthusiasts. For now, we can only wonder what it could be. All we know is, it could be anything. And until new sponsors step up, we may never get the answer. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this content, please hit like and subscribe, share it with your friends. And in the meantime, I know you will enjoy this video as well. I'll see you there.